Hello there, everyone. It's Josh at Trine Tech, and we're back. I know I've had a bit of a hiatus. Just things with work and life have kind of kept me from making new content. Um, but we're here again, and for today, we have a special treat for you. This is the initial look, quick rundown of the new Alienware M15 R4. And I just upgraded to this laptop from the prior R3 model, but I had the M17 Lunar White with the RTX 2070 and a Core i7-10750H, which is a 6-core CPU and 16 gigs of RAM. Currently here, what we have here is the M15 variant, and this is the R4 revision with a RTX 3070, and this is the Max P. I know now they're no longer doing the Max P kind of moniker or Max Q. They just have, it's all RTX 3070 or 3060 or what have you. Thanks to Nvidia and their reasoning behind their marketing terms. But what have you right now, just for the terms of this, for the purpose of this quick rundown, just know that this is the max performance variant of the RTX 3070. It is max power. So that means that this GPU inside here is a RTX 3070, which has a base TDP of 125, actually, correction, 115 watts. It is a 115 watt TDP GPU, but that has a dynamic boost range, pretty much the max range that you can get in a laptop with the RTX 3070. So it has a dynamic boost range of 25 watts, which means that you are able to boost up to a max wattage of 140 watts. And keep in mind that is on games that require more GPU power than CPU power. So what's going to happen is that your CPU power will go down, and that your GPU power will go up. It'll boost up to 140. So on games that are less CPU demanding but more GPU bound, you're going to see your CPU TDP go down quite significantly, and then you'll see your GPU power boost up. This model compared to the M17, and believe it or not, I never did a review of the M17, not just with what was going on with my life at the time and everything that was going on. There were some things I just wasn't really, I started out being really happy with that machine, and then I wasn't happy with it, and I didn't want to give like an unfair impression of the laptop. Overall it was good, but I was having some issues with thermals overall. And I am going to touch on that briefly here with this machine, okay, in comparison to the M17 R4, at least based off of reviews that I've seen. Okay, so first off, we just start with the exterior, okay. So first off, this one, as you can see, it is 15-inch form factor. This one does not have the full numpad like the M17 variant, okay. It has glass touchpad, all right, with Windows Precision drivers. It is a very good touchpad. However, it's not as good as the M17 variant. Like I said, you also miss out on the number pad, and to me that kind of seems like a missed opportunity, because this does not have speakers on the side here. And just me, I think that they could have taken the keyboard out a little bit further and kind of got maybe just a little bit more. That might have made the keyboard a little bit more cramped, but if the number pad is a big deal for you, then you might want to go with the M17 variant. Now, compared to the variant that I had before with the M17R3, I had a lunar white variant. This one is the dark side of the moon coat. So far, as I touch it here, really doesn't leave any fingerprints. I had the lunar white variant of the R3, and that one had the white coating, the magnesium coat sprayed on. And to be honest, like, I think with the first R2 variant there were some issues with discoloration, so I never had issues with discoloration on the R3. Okay, but with this there's no worry about that. Also, compared to the model I had with the M17R3, I had 4-zone keyboards. I am happy to report that this has per key RGB. If you wanted to tweak the keys, you could do so in the Alienware command center. Go here into FX, and then you could actually set just general settings. Right now I just have it on the rainbow one, but you could actually set macros, light up certain keys. If you have certain keys that you want lit up or want lit up a different color, you could do that. Okay. Likewise, if I wanted to go dark, I could go dark and turn off all the lights. Okay. Talk about some of the ports here. So I'm gonna have to unplug some things here, because right now I have it hooked up to an external monitor. Hopefully I can do this without breaking my cable or breaking the little connecting clip. Alright, so I've unplugged the monitor. Alright, and as you see here, this still has the same kind of little light bar there on the back. All right. Honestly, I really dig this dark side of the moon. I liked the lunar white, but something about this dark side of the moon, you see the little subdued 15 logo, if you can see that. Okay. I really like this kind of design here because it's just really subdued. If I wanted to turn off those RGBs, I could. And then you just kind of have this kind of blackish, grayish laptop that, while it still looks like a gaming laptop, it is not like really crazy or over the wall. Okay, so now I'm going to close this here, and I'm going to show you some ports. All right, so if you look at the side here, you have a micro SD. To be honest, I would have preferred a full-size SD, but to have a micro SD on a 15-inch laptop these days is actually better than nothing. There's two USB 3.0. Okay, on the back here, you have a couple different other ports. You have HDMI, mini display port, USB-C Thunderbolt, the graphics amplifier port, which honestly to me I could do without, and then the plug in the back. Here you have a RJ45 port, Ethernet port, and another USB 3.0, and then a headphone port. On the front, there's nothing, but you have two front-facing, front-blasting speakers, main speakers. All right, and then what I do like that they changed about this one is that they now made it to where this is now has a matte little lip here on the edge here, which was to me just a nice little improvement over the R3, because the R3 had, I don't know, it was gloss, and I did not like it. Okay, but as you see here, this is actually very light for the amount of power, and the overall thermal performance that you do get with this. Although if you want the better thermal performance, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want better thermal performance out of the box with less tuning, and you're not worried about, you know, having kind of a desktop replacement, I would say go with the M17. All right. But if you want something that's a little bit more portable, this is the one. Okay. Like I said, this feels fairly light in the hand. All right. You're seeing a little bit of fingerprints there. Okay. A little bit of fingerprints. Not too bad. It's not a fingerprint magnet. And honestly, you just wipe it off with the cloth and good to go. But it's not glossy. It's not really too bad. Especially there on the keyboard and the palm rest, does not attract a lot of fingerprints. Okay, so going back to the actual design of the laptop here, I'm going to go ahead and plug this back in. Open it up. Now, as you notice, that is kind of a little gig for me, at least. Okay, is that you cannot lift this laptop lid one-handed. You just can't. Okay. Keyboard feels good. The screen itself looks very nice. It is not as nice as, say, the QHD screens that are out now. This is a 1080p full HD. Let me minimize all my little screens here. It is full HD, 144 hertz display. This one, the good news about this is that this actually has a G-Sync monitor compared to the R3 variant that I think you had to pay extra for the G-Sync one. The other good thing is that, see this, G-Sync compatible. It's a 144 hertz display. The color's good, no HDR, gets fairly bright, but it's not anything that's gonna like blow your socks off. Okay, it's okay. I did not notice any major ghosting. I also didn't notice any, let's see here. I didn't notice any major, like, how do I say, backlight bleed. So we're going to look up the backlight bleed test. We're going to bring that up right now. And so typically you enter full screen mode. Okay. That's it with lights on. And then we're going to go ahead and just dim the lights here. Okay. So this one has a little bit, just a little bit of IPS kind of backlight bleed. Here's the thing with IPS displays. They all have, to some degree, more or less backlight bleed. This one is actually way better than what I had on my R4 variant. Our R3 variant, I should say. That one had just terrible backlight bleed. Okay. Now, there's another cool setting with this. All right. Now, there's some other variants that you can get of this display. They have higher refresh rates. Some of them have higher refresh rates, but may or may not have G-Sync. I think there's a 360 hertz that does not have G-Sync. And then there's a 300 hertz, I want to say, and then the 300 hertz has G-Sync. And then the other thing that's kind of puzzling to me, but I'm happy this one has it, I just wish the higher refresh rate ones did, is on the 144 hertz, you have here, if you look, you have Advanced Optimus. So right now, you can choose Automatic Select, Apply, and then, okay, so right now it says Automatic Select, and it says basically it's got Optimus, or yeah, Automatic Select is going to default to Optimus. I can choose Optimus only, right, which is the best. If you're not plugged in, say you're traveling, you're going to want Optimus. And then what I do, because I'm typically plugged up at home, is I just leave it Nvidia GPU only, and then I have my G-Sync. But if I was not hooked up to a wall plug, I would take a hit on battery life. Okay, so that's cool. What's really baffling is that for whatever reason, the higher refresh rate ones, they just have Optimus. They don't have the Advanced Optimus. So I can't make it just run GPU only. Okay. Like I said, you can control settings here for the laptop in Alien Command Center. I'm going to be honest, one of the biggest Achilles heels of all of the Alienware laptops is the Alienware Command Center. They've made some improvements to the software, but I still can't control fan speeds. I can't control, like I can just set general settings for my thermal profiles. Full speed, quiet, cool, performance, and balanced. But there's not, I can't create custom fan curves and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I mean, if you either, love it, tolerate it, or hate, Command Center. All right. But you can still set settings per game. The only thing I noticed lately, and again, I'll talk more about this in my full review, is I was setting profiles for my games, and the latest version of Command Center, I was like losing profiles. Okay. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but how does this thing perform? Thermals. I will tell you this, spoiler alert, before I do my full review. Thermals can still get up there pretty high, but they are better than what they were on the R2 and the R3. I'm going to tell you something. I have owned all of the variants of the M15 or M17 laptop. I've had an M1 or R1, the kind of thick, chunky looking one. M15, that one went way, way too hot. I could never control the thermals. I had to turn it in, return it. I've had the R2, I had the M17 R3, and now I have the R4. So just like thermals got better with the R3, which at first the thermals on my R3 were great. Then they kind of took a hit, and I don't know if that was some issue with the thermal paste or something happened. But I just noticed I was having no throttling, but it really got really toasty up to 100 degrees. I'll tell you this, you will still have to do some tuning because out of the box this thing will still run hot. Okay? But on this laptop I was able to get a modest minus 100 millivolt undervolt, but that's only in performance mode. Okay? So I had to have the performance mode power settings, basically fans running full bore, high power, and then I was able to get a minus 100 millivolt undervolt. Right now, just from me running it, and I've been running it, and I was doing some gaming, the highest my temps ever got here was 80. But under more demanding games, I've seen the temps go up to 82, 83, which isn't bad for an Intel system. But to be honest, like, Dell really needs to step their game up with their thermal management. I know Dell kind of has a different philosophy. They approach it where they let the horses run full bore. They let it go all the way up to the T max temp that Intel says is safe, which is 100 degrees Celsius, before they start throttling down. And they kind of view it as if the CPU clocks never throttle down below what the the base clock is, as long as it's still boosting, it's good to them. And tech support's told me this. All right. I will say this, for an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, the thermals on this, compared to my R3 M17, which was bigger, had a beefier cooling solution, has been much better. Especially on games that aren't as CPU demanding or CPU heavy. I've seen mostly temps stay around 70-ish, no more than like 82 degrees. All right, and that's even on like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which that game had always heated up my CPU super hot in prior Alienware systems. But yeah, so that's been good overall. That's been really great on the system. And I'm gonna plug in my cables here. I'm gonna plug in my cables. The other thing that's been better is, so when it's in performance mode, the fans still ramp up. They're still really high. What's better is like when you're running it in balance mode now, the fans don't ramp up as much. Okay. I'll talk really briefly about performance just off initial testing. Like I said, my overall thermals were pretty good. The highest I saw the thermals ever go was 98 degrees Celsius, and that was on Far Cry 5, which is a really CPU heavy game. And honestly, like, it's loads the CPU very heavy. And that was on 2560-1440, which was more GPU bound, but I still, with the GPU ramping up and then the CPU ramping up, I saw my temps did sometimes get up to 98 degrees Celsius. All right. Performance, I'll hit you with some numbers really quick. Okay, so on Far Cry 5, 2560-1440, we saw average FPS of 98 frames per second. And then on 1080p, 106. All right, and then Gears 5, we also saw, and I'll actually show you some of my frames here. Okay. So that's a screenshot from what I got. You see there, granted it wasn't in the middle of the benchmark, but right now my temps were 83. Okay, and at 1080p I was seeing around 108, 106. 2560 I was seeing average FPS of 98. This game tends to be a little bit more like CPU bound. Far Cry 5, New Dawn. Okay, this one is still running on the Dunia engine, and it was seeing around 92 FPS. I saw some dips there, 89 here, that's 1080p. And then the FPS really did not go up much higher. I think we were CPU constrained here, which is crazy. It's just crazy that in 2021, we were getting CPU constraints on these RTX 30 series. Even with the 8-core 16-thread CPU. This was the only game I saw any sort of like CPU constraints. But it only went up to, it still didn't take that much of a hit. It was 87 FPS there at 1080p. Borderlands 3 at 1440p, and I'll cover this more in my full review. We had 69.26, and it mostly stayed around there. Okay, and then we were around 85, 84 FPS at 1080p. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Alright, so this is another game that my CPU temps used to always just skyrocket. Now my temps were a little bit higher at 1080p, but our FPS was 109 to 110. The lowest I got was 107, and then here at 1440p really stays around 90, 91 FPS. If you notice there, look how much lower my CPU temps are. 72 there, right after the benchmark, and then here they got as high as 85, which again for a Intel based system and for Alienware, they have improved the thermals. This still has the vaporwave or vapor chamber cooling system, just like the R3, but it looks like they've done some more tweaks and improvements. And I honestly, you are going to get a big bump in performance if you upgrade from the RTX 2070 Super model. You're not going to see like anything like mind shattering, but I did see pretty good increase in performance, and then I also saw a decrease in temps. So like I said, my CPU when I was gaming on my M15 really got really hot. Okay, here this is gaming at 1440p, and we're almost 100% GPU constrained here, GPU bound, which isn't surprising. At 1440p, this was max. All this was max ultra details, max settings. Okay, and we're 69.3 FPS at 1440p, and let's see if I can bring up. Oh, for some reason, oh, that just shut down on me. And then Gears of War 5. This was at 1080p. I don't know what happened to me with photos there. We're at 93.5 FPS. Okay. Again, you see here at the 1080p, see the temps got up to 87. That was right after the third run of the benchmark. So, you know, the temps are getting high, but they're nothing crazy. They're nothing unmanageable. And again, so that temp was with a minus 100 millivolt undervolt. I was able to have that stable when performance mode was on, but if performance mode was not on, I had to bump down my undervolt down to 90. And then I had a game setting that I used in most of my gaming that I just leave it at. And for that one, whether I'm in balance or performance, minus 90 millivolts was stable. So I know this is kind of long for initial impressions, just a quick rundown. I will do more in my deep dive, but overall, I've just in the week and a half or so, I've only had this machine for a week. I definitely want to do more of a deep dive with my full review. Stay tuned for that. But overall, I've been really happy with this machine. The thermals have been much better. Performance has been a big increase from the RTX 2070, especially at 1440p. And I really love and dig the single key RGB, and I like the smaller, more portable size. It's actually really amazing how much power I've gotten out of this machine. And yeah, thermals do get high in certain instances, but for the amount of power, this is like the first time in a semi-portable form factor, you know, a pretty small form factor, that I've been able to get like, the performance has been pretty close to my desktop RTX 2080 that I used to have in my desktop build. But this I can actually take with me. I can put in my backpack, not break my back, and it's been really great. Overall, been super happy with it. Like I said, make sure if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, click that like button. If you didn't like it, give me a thumbs down, but at least give me a comment. Tell me why didn't you like the video, okay? But make sure to stay tuned for the full review. We're going to go more in depth, and we're going to go real hard and heavy. I'll show you some actual gameplay, and it's going to be awesome. So stay tuned for that. If you want to see more of that, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll check you in the next one. This is Josh at Trine Tech, signing out.